Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into a life-changing idea that has the potential to reshape the way you approach your goals and daily habits. Let me ask you this. How many times have you tried to make a big change, like exercising regularly, saving more money or eating healthier, only to find yourself back at square one after a few weeks? It's frustrating, right? The problem isn't you. It's the way we think about change. Most of us believe transformation comes from massive effort, dramatic overhauls of our routines. But the truth is, the real power lies in small, consistent actions. That's the core idea of Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the most influential books on personal growth. The book argues that small habits, when repeated consistently, compound over time to produce extraordinary results. Think of it like rolling a snowball down a hill. It starts small, but with every rotation, it picks up more snow, growing bigger and bigger. What's truly fascinating is that this approach isn't just about building new habits. It's about shaping the person you want to become. Every small action you take is like a vote for your future self. Whether you want to be healthier, more productive, or more financially secure, it all starts with tiny changes that over time lead to massive transformations. Today, we'll break down the principles of Atomic Habits and explore how you can make them work for you. Whether you're struggling to start a new routine, feeling stuck in old patterns, or simply looking for inspiration, this episode is packed with practical strategies to help you create lasting change. Foundational principles: why tiny changes lead to big transformations. Let's start with the big idea that underpins everything in Atomic Habits. Small habits matter because of the compound effect. Imagine improving by just 1% every day. At first, it might not seem like much, but over a year, those small improvements add up to something extraordinary. You'll be 37 times better than when you started. The reverse is also true. If you get just 1% worse every day, the decline compounds over time. This is why bad habits can feel so insidious. They sneak up on you. Missing one workout, eating one unhealthy meal, or skipping one task doesn't ruin your progress immediately, but repeated over time. These small decisions pull you away from your goals. Think of it like planting a seed. At first, you don't see any growth. You water it, care for it, and wait. Then one day, a sprout appears. That sprout didn't come out of nowhere. It's the result of all the unseen work happening below the surface. Habits work the same way. The progress might be invisible at first, but it's happening. And if you stay consistent, you'll reach a tipping point where the results become undeniable. Let's take this idea a step further. Habits aren't just about what you do. They're about who you are. Every action you take reinforces your identity. For example, if you want to be a writer, writing one sentence a day casts a vote for that identity. If you want to be healthier, drinking one glass of water or taking a short walk is a vote for being a healthy person. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. James Clear explains this beautifully in the book. Instead of focusing on goals like, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to save $10,000, focus on the identity you want to build. I'm the kind of person who takes care of my health, or I'm someone who is financially responsible. Here's a story to bring this to life. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." The first person still identifies as a smoker. They're just resisting the habit. The second person, however, has shifted their identity. They see themselves as someone who doesn't smoke. That mindset makes all the difference. So ask yourself, who do you want to become? Once you have that answer, start casting votes for that identity, one small habit at a time. Here's the catch. Small habits are powerful, but they often feel unrewarding in the beginning. This is because the results take time to show up. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, that frustrating period where you're putting in effort but not seeing results. It's like trying to boil water. At first, nothing seems to happen. The temperature rises slowly, lukewarm, then hot. But it's not until it hits 100 degrees Celsius that it boils. That final transformation doesn't happen all at once. It's the result of consistent effort over time. This is where most people give up. They don't realize that progress is happening beneath the surface. But if you can stick with it long enough, you'll reach that tipping point where the results start to compound exponentially. The key is to focus on the process, not the outcome. Instead of obsessing over results like, I want to lose 20 pounds, shift your mindset to, I'm the kind of person who works out regularly. Instead of saying, I want to save $10,000, say, I'm the kind of person who saves money consistently. When you focus on the daily actions you can control, the results will take care of themselves. Make it obvious. The first step to building better habits. Every habit starts with a cue. It's the trigger that tells your brain it's time to act. But here's the thing. If the cue isn't clear, the habit doesn't stand a chance. You might have the best intentions, but without a noticeable prompt, you'll forget, procrastinate, or lose momentum. Think about some of your existing habits. Why do you brush your teeth every morning? It's because the toothbrush is sitting right there on the sink, reminding you to do it. Why do you check your phone so often? Probably because it lights up with notifications or sits within arm's reach. These actions feel automatic, but they're driven by obvious cues in your environment. Now, let's flip the script. What happens to habits that don't have clear cues? Let's say you want to start journaling, but your notebook is tucked away in a drawer. Or maybe you want to work out, but your sneakers are hidden in the back of your closet. Without a visible trigger, these habits get lost in the shuffle of daily life. The good news? You can take control of this process. You can design your environment to make the right cues impossible to miss. Here's an example. I wanted to start drinking more water. At first, I kept forgetting, out of sight, out of mind. Then I decided to place a big water bottle on my desk where I'd see it all day. Suddenly, drinking water became automatic. Every glance at the bottle was a cue, and over time, hydration became a habit. This principle works for any habit. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. Want to exercise? Lay out your workout clothes where you can't ignore them. Want to eat healthier? Put fruits and vegetables at the front of your fridge and hide the junk food. By making the cues for good habits obvious, you make it easier to act without even thinking about it. Now, let's talk about stacking habits, one of the simplest and most effective ways to create clear cues. The idea is simple. Pair a new habit with something you already do consistently. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'll floss. After I pour my coffee, I'll write in my journal. After I sit down at my desk, I'll review my to-do list. Think about it. Every existing habit in your life can act as a natural trigger for a new behavior. Let me share a personal story. A while ago, I wanted to start meditating but kept forgetting, so I stacked it onto my coffee-making routine. While waiting for the coffee to brew, I'd sit for 2 minutes and meditate. The smell of coffee became my cue, and meditation quickly became part of my morning rhythm. It didn't feel forced, it just flowed naturally. Take a moment to think about your own routines. What's something you already do every day? Could you use that as a launching pad for a new habit? The beauty of habit stacking is that it links the new behavior to something familiar, making it easier to remember and stick with. Here's another tip. Reduce friction. Friction is anything that makes a habit harder to start. If you have to search for your running shoes or dig through a pile of clothes to find your gym gear, you've created unnecessary barriers. The solution: make the habit as convenient as possible. Place your workout clothes in plain sight. Prep healthy snacks so they're easy to grab, or keep your journal on your bedside table. The same principle works in reverse for breaking bad habits. Want to spend less time on social media? Delete the apps from your home screen or turn off notifications. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it or put the remote in another room. By increasing friction for bad habits, you create a natural pause that makes you reconsider the action. Here's what I want you to think about. What's one habit you've been trying to build? Maybe it's exercising more, eating better, or starting a creative project. Look around your space. Are there clear cues that make the habit easy to remember? Or are there obstacles in the way? Because here's the truth. Habits don't just happen. They're shaped by the environment you create. And when you make the cues obvious, you take the first step toward making the habit automatic. Make it attractive. Now that we've covered how to make habits obvious, let's move on to the next essential principle, making them attractive. Why does this matter? Because our brains are wired to seek out things that feel rewarding or enjoyable. If a habit feels appealing, you're far more likely to stick with it. If it feels dull or uninviting, your brain will resist it, no matter how good your intentions are. At the heart of this principle is the idea of cravings. Every habit begins with a craving, the anticipation of a reward. Dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical, plays a huge role here. It's not just released when you experience something pleasurable, it's also released in anticipation of that pleasure. This anticipation creates the drive to act. Think about the excitement you feel when you're about to indulge in your favorite dessert, or the thrill of seeing a notification light up your phone. That surge of dopamine motivates you to take action. To build better habits, you need to tap into this system and make your brain crave the behavior you want to reinforce. So how do you do that? By making habits more attractive, enjoyable, and rewarding. One of the most effective strategies for this is temptation bundling. This involves pairing a habit you want to build with something you already enjoy. For example, let's say you want to exercise more. You could allow yourself to watch your favorite show or listen to an exciting audiobook, but only while you're on the treadmill or lifting weights. Suddenly, exercise doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like an opportunity to enjoy something you love. Here's a personal example. I used to dread cleaning my apartment. It felt like such a boring, endless task. Then, I started bundling it with something I enjoyed, listening to a playlist of my favorite songs. Cleaning became a chance to dance around my apartment and enjoy great music. Over time, I stopped seeing it as a hassle and started looking forward to it. Reframing your mindset is another powerful way to make habits more attractive. Instead of focusing on what you're giving up, focus on what you're gaining. For example, instead of saying, "I have to exercise," say, "I get to move my body and feel stronger." Instead of saying, "I have to cook at home," say, "I get to prepare delicious, nourishing meals for myself." These small shifts in language can completely change the way you feel about a habit. Humans are also social creatures. The people around you have a massive influence on your behavior, often without you even realizing it. If your friends are active, you're more likely to be active. If your co-workers always take a midday walk, you might join them. This is why surrounding yourself with people who embody the habits you want to build is so important. Let's say you want to read more. Joining a book club can be a game changer. The social connection makes the habit feel enjoyable and even exciting. If you want to get into fitness, working out with a friend or joining a local class can make the process much more appealing. When you're part of a community that shares your goals, habits start to feel like a shared experience rather than a solitary effort. On the flip side, breaking bad habits involves making them unattractive. This starts with reframing how you think about those behaviors. If you're trying to quit junk food, don't think of it as a treat. Instead, picture it draining your energy or negatively impacting your health. If you're trying to procrastinate less, don't see it as a relaxing break. Imagine the stress and lost opportunities it creates over time. Here's a story about how I used this approach. I used to have a habit of staying up late watching random YouTube videos. It felt relaxing in the moment, but the next morning, I'd always regret it. I decided to reframe the behavior. Instead of seeing it as downtime, I started visualizing how it made me feel: tired, unproductive, and frustrated. That mental shift made the habit much less appealing, and over time, it faded away. To make a habit stick, you also need to build in immediate rewards. The problem with good habits is that their rewards are often delayed. Exercising today doesn't give you abs tomorrow. Eating one healthy meal doesn't instantly transform your health. To bridge this gap, create small, immediate rewards that make the habit feel satisfying in the moment. For example, after a workout, treat yourself to a long, relaxing shower. After sticking to your budget for a week, allow yourself a small, guilt-free splurge. Think about your own habits. What are the ones you've struggled to build? How could you make them more attractive? Could you bundle them with something enjoyable, like music, a show, or time with friends? Could you reframe them as opportunities rather than obligations? Or could you find a way to reward yourself for sticking with them? The beauty of making habits attractive is that it transforms the process. Instead of feeling like work, the habit becomes something you look forward to, a small moment of joy in your day. So start today. Pick one habit you've been meaning to build and ask yourself, how can I make this irresistible? Make it easy. Let's move on to the third key to building better habits: making them easy. Have you ever noticed how the simplest tasks often feel the easiest to stick with? There's a reason for that. When something feels effortless, it doesn't require much willpower or motivation to get started. This is why making habits easy is such a game changer. It removes friction and lowers the barrier to entry. Habits thrive on repetition, not perfection. The more you repeat a behavior, the stronger the neural pathways in your brain become. Over time, the habit becomes automatic. But to reach that point, you have to make it easy enough to start. Think about it this way. What's more likely to stick? A goal of running a marathon right off the bat, or a goal of running for just 2 minutes a day? The second one feels achievable, almost too small to fail, and that's exactly the point. By starting small and focusing on ease, you set yourself up for long-term success. The 2-minute rule is one of the most powerful strategies for making habits easy. The idea is simple. When you're starting a new habit, scale it down to something that takes 2 minutes or less. Want to start reading more? Don't commit to finishing a book. Commit to reading 1 page. Want to start meditating? Don't aim for 30 minutes. Aim for 30 seconds. Here's the beauty of this approach. Once you start, you'll often find yourself continuing beyond the initial 2 minutes. The hardest part is getting started. Once you're in motion, momentum takes over. Think of it like rolling a boulder. The first push is the hardest, but after that, it's much easier to keep it moving. This strategy also works because it helps you overcome procrastination. When a task feels overwhelming, your brain looks for reasons to avoid it. But when the task is small and manageable, there's no excuse not to start. Here's an example from my own life. I used to struggle with exercising regularly. The idea of a full workout felt daunting, so I decided to start with just 1 push-up a day. That's it, just 1. It felt almost ridiculous, but it worked. Once I got down on the floor, I'd usually end up doing more. Over time, the habit stuck, and now exercising is a natural part of my routine. Another way to make habits easier is to reduce friction. Friction is anything that makes a habit harder to do. For example, if you want to start running but your running shoes are buried in the back of your closet, that's friction. If you want to eat healthier but your fridge is full of junk food, that's friction. To reduce friction, make the habit as convenient as possible. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Prep healthy snacks in advance so they're easy to grab. Keep your guitar in the living room if you want to practice more. The easier it is to take action, the more likely you are to follow through. At the same time, you can increase friction for bad habits. Want to spend less time on social media? Delete the app from your phone or set your screen time limits. Want to watch less TV? Unplug the TV or put the remote in another room. By making bad habits slightly harder to do, you give yourself a chance to pause and reconsider. Your environment plays a huge role here. James Clear explains it perfectly. You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can be the architect of it. Small changes to your surroundings can make a big difference in how easy or hard it is to stick to your habits. Another key to making habits easy is automation. Technology can be a powerful ally in habit formation. For example, set up automatic transfers to your savings account if you want to save more money. Use a meal delivery service if you want to eat healthier but struggle with cooking. Schedule recurring reminders on your phone to stay on track with your habits. Automation removes the need for decision-making, which is often where habits falter. When the habit happens automatically, you don't have to rely on willpower to make it happen. Finally, let's talk about habit shaping. This is the process of starting small and gradually building up over time. Think of it like leveling up in a video game. You start with the easiest version of the habit and slowly increase the difficulty as you build confidence and momentum. For example, if you want to start running, begin by walking for 5 minutes a day. Once that feels easy, start jogging for a minute or two during your walk. Over time, you'll naturally progress to longer runs. If you want to write a book, start by writing 1 sentence a day. Once that becomes a habit, aim for a paragraph, then a page, and so on. The key is to focus on consistency, not intensity. Small, manageable steps are more sustainable than big, ambitious leaps. And the more you show up, the easier it becomes to build on your progress. Making habits easy isn't about taking shortcuts or avoiding hard work. It's about removing barriers, simplifying the process, and making it as effortless as possible to get started. So, take a moment to think about a habit you want to build. What's one small change you can make today to reduce friction or scale it down to a 2-minute version? Because once a habit feels easy, it's no longer something you have to force yourself to do. It's just part of who you are. Make it satisfying. Now, let's talk about the final piece of the habit-building puzzle: making it satisfying. This is the part that often gets overlooked, but is absolutely critical. At its core, habits are formed because of rewards. When a behavior feels good, your brain marks it as worth repeating. Without that sense of satisfaction, even the most well-intentioned habits can fizzle out. Think back to a time when you accomplished something you were proud of. Maybe you finished a tough workout, completed a project at work, or reached a savings goal. How did you feel afterward? That rush of accomplishment, that sense of pride, is what reinforces the habit. It's your brain's way of saying, "This was worth it. Let's do it again." The problem with good habits is that their rewards are often delayed. Eating a healthy meal doesn't immediately make you feel fitter. Saving a little money today doesn't instantly make you rich. These benefits take time to materialize, and that delay can make it hard to stay motivated. This is why making habits satisfying in the moment is so important. If you can create small, immediate rewards, you're far more likely to stick with the behavior long enough to see the bigger results down the line. One way to do this is by celebrating small wins. Every time you complete a habit, take a moment to acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "I did it," or check off a box on your habit tracker. These tiny acts of recognition might seem insignificant, but they trigger a powerful sense of accomplishment. They're like giving your brain a high five. Here's an example. A friend of mine wanted to build the habit of running every morning. After each run, she'd mark it on a calendar with a bright red X. Seeing that streak grow day by day became incredibly satisfying. It wasn't just about the running, it was about not breaking the chain. That visual progress became its own reward, motivating her to keep going. Another strategy is to pair your habit with something you genuinely enjoy. For instance, after a workout, treat yourself to a relaxing shower or your favorite smoothie. After completing a work task, take a short break to scroll through social media guilt-free. These small rewards create a positive association with the habit, making it something you look forward to rather than dread. Let's talk about bad habits for a moment. Just as good habits need to feel satisfying, bad habits need to feel unsatisfying. If you want to stop a bad habit, you need to make it unpleasant or inconvenient. For example, if you're trying to stop eating junk food, you could set a rule. For every piece of junk food you eat, you have to put $5 in a jar. That financial penalty creates an immediate consequence that makes the habit less appealing. Or if you want to stop procrastinating, you could set a timer for work intervals and reward yourself only after completing a focused session. By creating friction for bad habits, you're training your brain to associate them with discomfort rather than pleasure. Here's a personal story. I used to have a habit of staying up too late watching random YouTube videos. It felt satisfying in the moment, but the next day, I'd always regret it. To break the habit, I set a rule. If I stayed up past my bedtime, I had to skip my morning coffee. It sounds simple, but it worked. The thought of giving up coffee was enough to make me reconsider those late-night scrolling sessions. Another way to make habits satisfying is to link them to your long-term identity. Every time you complete a habit, remind yourself of the kind of person you're becoming. For example, after drinking a glass of water, think, "I'm the kind of person who takes care of my health." After putting money into your savings, say, I'm someone who is financially responsible. These small affirmations reinforce the identity you're working toward, making the habit feel deeply meaningful. Let's circle back to the idea of immediate rewards. While long-term results like better health or financial stability are the ultimate goal, they're not enough to keep you motivated in the moment. That's why it's so important to create small, immediate rewards that give you a sense of satisfaction right now. Over time, these rewards build momentum, and the habit becomes self-sustaining. Here's a challenge for you. Think about a habit you're trying to build. What's one small way you can make it more satisfying? Maybe it's tracking your progress with a habit tracker, pairing the habit with something enjoyable, or giving yourself a little reward after completing it. Whatever it is, remember that the key is to make the habit feel good today, so you'll want to do it again tomorrow. Because here's the truth. The habits that stick are the ones that feel satisfying, not just in the long run, but in the moment. When you make your habits rewarding, you create a positive feedback loop that keeps you coming back for more, and that's where real, lasting change begins. We've covered a lot today, but let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned. If there's one thing to take away from this episode, it's this. Small habits are the building blocks of extraordinary change. They may feel insignificant at first, but over time, their impact is nothing short of transformational. Let's revisit the principles we discussed. It all starts with making habits obvious. Your environment should be your ally, nudging you toward the behaviors you want to build. Whether it's placing a water bottle on your desk, leaving a book on your pillow, or prepping your workout clothes the night before, small changes to your surroundings can make a world of difference. Then we explored the importance of making habits attractive. By tapping into the power of dopamine and using strategies like temptation bundling and reframing, you can create a craving for the habits you want to stick with. When a habit feels appealing, it stops being a chore and starts being something you look forward to. Next, we dove into making habits easy. The easier a habit is to start, the more likely you are to keep doing it. Whether it's scaling a habit down to a 2-minute version or reducing friction in your environment, simplicity is your best friend. Consistency, not perfection, is what drives progress. Finally, we looked at making habits satisfying. Rewards are the glue that hold habits together. By celebrating small wins, tracking your progress, and linking your habits to your identity, you create a positive feedback loop that keeps you motivated and engaged. But this isn't just about understanding these principles, it's about applying them. So here's a challenge for you. Think about one habit you've been meaning to build. Maybe it's something simple like drinking more water, reading more, or spending less time on your phone. Start by focusing on just one habit and use the principles we've discussed. 1. Make the cue obvious. What's the trigger that will remind you to take action? 2. Make it attractive. How can you link the habit to something you enjoy? 3. Make it easy. What's the simplest version of the habit you can commit to? 4. Make it satisfying. How will you reward yourself for sticking with it? Write it down, visualize it, and most importantly, start small. Remember, the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to show up consistently and cast votes for the person you want to become. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. Every small action you take is a step toward the life you want. It's not about making massive changes all at once. It's about making tiny improvements every day. Over time, those improvements compound into something extraordinary. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. What's one habit you're going to work on after listening? Share your thoughts, your progress, or even your challenges with us on social media. And if you found this episode helpful, consider sharing it with someone who could use a little inspiration to start their own habit journey. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this conversation has inspired you to take action, no matter how small that first step might be. Because at the end of the day, it's the tiny habits, the atomic habits, that create the biggest transformations. Until next time, keep showing up, keep making progress, and keep becoming the person you're meant to be.